Back at it after a little Christmas festivities with my guy Stuckey, 33-23-1, who probably hasn't moved off his couch for a week watching football. Just feels like just nonstop games the best. You get up, there's a bowl game with 6-6 teams. You go to bed, you got a future potentially number one pick against Oregon, and just how crazy was that kick? You can find him on the Action Network podcast, as well as Big Bets on Campus. Stuckey, what's cracking, bro?
What's going on, brother? Yeah, we like in a half hour. There's we're gonna have a 2:00 in the afternoon. There's a bowl game. If the world always operated like this, there would be no one would ever get anything done.
Absolutely no chance. How about that Oregon kick? I mean, I thought
wild.
he missed. I thought he missed.
That was insane. And people who had the over almost had a lifeline of a tie game similar to Arkansas, Kansas, which was also a wild game. So, yeah, the bowls are getting good. The games, they'll start to matter more. And I think we're going to get 2 good college football playoff games. And the great thing about the schedule this weekend is normally it's like New Year's. It's going to feel a little weird New Year's Day, not like watching the Rose Bowl and, being hungover on the couch. But you're going to get Saturday college football playoff, Sunday full NFL slate with a lot of playoff implications, and then Monday, Rose Bowl and college football all day. So hell of a weekend. And
is there a Monday night football game on the 2nd?
Yeah, Bills Bengals.
I mean, how do you get Rose Bowl and Bills Bengals? I mean, holy moly.
ESPN had to come out and say if the Rose Bowl goes a little long, they're going to keep the Rose Bowl on. They get an official announcement and put Bills Bengals on ESPN too, which is shocking. It's probably the only time the NFL would ever take the backseat to anything. But it's what a weekend.
I'd argue that is an incredible back-to-back, just Rose Bowl with, Penn State's going to try, and obviously Utah, this is their Super Bowl, to go Bills Bengals. I mean, that's got to be, when the season ends, on paper, one of the better games of the season.
Yep. Yeah, Tulane USC too. I think will be an interesting game earlier in the day. So yeah, that's what a Monday.
It's crazy. Drake May, I think you brought him up to me way earlier in the season. I wasn't super locked in on UNC. And I mean, obviously he's incredible. I mean, it's come out that he's turning down $5 million, which I think is fair to say probably Alabama, Georgia, Texas A&M, one of those type teams offered him money. And then yesterday I get up, or 2 days ago, and the Wake Forest kid who's been putting up huge numbers for years, he wasn't even in the portal, just goes in the portal, and then he's at Notre Dame. He got a enormous direct deposit. I'll promise you this, with Notre Dame guys, if you've ever met the rich Notre Dame, that money's already through. That money went through, and he said, see you guys later. And think about, Drake May. Bo Nix is a guy, he's got a little Zach Wilson to his game, just in terms of kind of runs around, makes plays, could just completely, unlike Zach, has resurrected his career. I mean, how that guy was so terrible. I was in the car yesterday, so I wasn't able to watch the game, but he's had for how crappy he was, just a fantastic year. This quarterback class next year is going to be pretty fun.
Yeah. Well, he's coming back.
Penix is coming back.
Yeah, and I think that I do think I thought this from early on, just from watching, and we'll see what Grayson McCall has got some potential. Will go from Coastal Carolina, but yeah, just from watching Drake May, and then anytime I was digging into like advanced stats, and it would be like, all right, quarterbacks under pressure, what are they? And Drake May was just jumping off the page, so I started watching him. I truly believe he's going to be the best quarterback, the best future pro quarterback that's currently in college. And last night he's playing, he has a bad offensive line. He was playing without his best receiver who opted out. His offensive coordinator was bad all year. And yeah, the kid just has it, and he can make every throw. And it's one of the things that, maybe some kids hang around an extra year in college because you're going to get paid. You get these superstars, you can get paid, come back for one more year. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of May. I would buy his stock now.
Yeah, I think he's going to be in the mix. Everyone just puts Caleb there, and obviously he was fantastic this season, but Drake's going to have something to say. He's bigger. It's a little more difficult observation because his program is not going to just be as good as USC, but I'm with you. And texting around to buddies, he turned down Alabama at high school, and obviously he probably just turned him down again. Well, let's get into some of these NFL games. The Jets, who officially basically are done with our boy from BYU. are taking broken rib Mike White back, and you would think that Joe Namath is walking back through the door playing Seattle, who, basically we all shorted, 3 or 4 weeks ago. You could tell they were leaking oil, and now they got some problems. There's a weird spot. How injured is he? Is he just, it took him a while to get cleared in the first place. So I would imagine he's not just feeling great, but given how terrible Zach Wilson is, that no one can argue. This isn't just, it's a dramatic. They went to a guy who couldn't throw, that I had never heard of in my life, who had been in the CFL and who also couldn't throw in the NFL game. And it felt like, he gives him a better chance to move the ball. So I like the Jets this weekend.
Yeah, it didn't feel like that. That's how it was. Zach Wilson is he now, if you look at a stat like ELO, he's now has the lowest ELO of any quarterback through 22 starts in NFL history. So yeah, talk about a bust. And we're going to talk week 17, week 18, and you're going to see a lot of the NFL. You always see upsets that you never expect. And I remember when the Jets beat the Rams, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, didn't get the number 1 overall pick because of that. Meaningless game to them. Won the game and lost the number 1 pick. And instead of getting Trevor Lawrence, ended up with Zach Wilson. So it's funny how some of these late season games that are pure meaningless can change the direction of a franchise.
Imagine if the Jets had Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
I think they would be competing. They might not be as good as the Bills and the Chiefs and the Bengals, but they'd be
a real threat.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, they'd be a real threat. That's the one missing piece that they have. But yeah, Mike White clearly gives them the best chance to win. I think it's mainly just if he was cleared, he wanted to play 2 weeks ago, so I assume that he's fine. Going up against just a horrible Seattle defense that's been trending in the wrong direction. The Jets will be able to get their run game going here as well. And White can just complete all the passes. He's not a complete disaster out there. And I don't think the market upgrades the Jets enough for when Mike White starts. The Jets, for whatever reason, have taken money the past 2 weeks, like sharp late money. They did it against the Jaguars and the Lions, even though Zach Wilson was starting. I completely disagree. I think it's a 2.5 point upgrade, maybe even 3 to Mike White. Jets defense still really good, be the best unit on the field here. And both teams will be motivated. They still have outside playoff chances. Tyler Lockett, his status is in doubt. Indoor, he might not be fully healthy with his hand. Jets get a few extra days of prep here if they're playing on Thursday. They're 5-2 against the spread on the road this year. Defense, special teams, they travel well. Their only losses came against the Patriots on a walk-off punt return and against the Vikings when the game they should have won when, the Vikings got like 3 goal line stops at the end. So Jets, you get Mike White here. Jets defense is the difference. Seattle team that's just fading quick. They haven't covered in 6 straight weeks. I think the Jets get it done on the road here.
Well, the Giants had a chance basically to solidify their playoff chances last week in that Minnesota game. And it's Minnesota just pulls these games out of, crevices. Who knows where they're grabbing them from, but they do it. So I've said, listen, I've started just giving them credit. I'm not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl or anything, but you win enough of these, maybe it's just historically that franchise has kind of been snake bit. Maybe this is just their year where they just win all these crazy games and get to the Super Bowl. But, the Giants, Colts stink. Nick Foles, holy moly. That was pretty ugly the other day. I don't think I could put money on the Colts. And now the Giants, this is kind of their doppelganger, but much worse, right? It's just really ugly. The ball doesn't move as well. Though I'd say Saquon has looked much more explosive these last couple of weeks. And Daniel Jones, you got to give him some credit. He definitely resurrected his career as just being a serviceable player, which he definitely wasn't. And I think that looking back, probably a Joe Judge, Pat Shurmur issue. But I like the Giants in this spot, especially at home.
Yeah, I disagree here. I played the Colts. Now this is shocker. I played a really bad team. The Colts this year, after double-digit losses, they've lost 3, and they just got embarrassed by the Chargers. Now, and Foles played. He was awful. He is awful, but so is Ryan, so is Ellinger.
Yeah,
I don't think there's much difference. This at least will be his second start. So he shook some of the rust off. He was missing some easy reads on defenses, things that he should know, but it was his first action of the year. I think it'll be a little bit better, and they'll be able to run the ball a little bit here. And they still have a top 10 defense. It's a defense that's ranked, I have them ranked, I think, 10th or 11th in the league right now, and they're playing really well overall. Like, they played well last week and just couldn't get anything going on offense. And you're going to see this a lot. Now, I'll talk about this next week as well. Because I think this line is just a little bit too high. I mean, the Giants were just
I agree with you. I agree with you there. The line probably should be like 4.
Yeah, and you're asking the Giants to win by a touchdown or more. And this is a team, by the way, they have 8 wins on the year. They're all by 1 possession. This is a team that struggles to build margin. Their defense isn't great. And you see this in the final 2 weeks of the regular season in the NFL every year in the market, where teams that are eliminated are playing teams that need to win. And the perception is, I want to bet the team that needs to win. Obviously, that it doesn't really work. If you go back to since 1990, eliminated teams who've already been eliminated from the playoffs, playing teams that need to win for their playoff hopes. The eliminated teams are 95, 57, and 4 against the spread. That's 62.5%. And the reason for that is these are still NFL players. They still have pride. And a lot of times these bad teams, it's like, now this is basically our playoff. We get a chance to play spoiler. They play looser. The other team's playing tighter. And then you have an inflated line, which I think you're getting in this case. And the Colts, look, they've lost 3 other times by double digits the next week. And by the way, they were plus 4.5 at Minnesota just a couple weeks ago. They were up 33-0 and covered. They also beat the Chiefs the week after losing by double digits, and they won at the Raiders. So the 3-0 against the
hell
spread.
of a cover.
Yeah, a big sweat. So yeah, they were plus 4.5 at Minnesota. So was recently. The Giants were plus 4.5 at Minnesota recently. The market was like, these two teams are pretty even. Throwing home field, Foles, maybe it's a little downgrade, but now you're getting 6. I have to take this. And yeah, week 16 road dogs are from 2000 to 2020. So you're looking at before they expanded to 18 weeks. Teams that are under 500 on the road catching points. So losing team catching points over a field goal, 53 and 30 against the spread, 62%. And that speaks to, no one wants to bet these teams that are eliminated against these teams that are playing for something at home. And you're just getting a couple points of value usually. So yeah, I'm holding my nose. I'm backing the Colts. It's ugly, I know.
Looking at the standings with a win, they don't, if they cover or not, the Giants are essentially in the playoffs because all these 8-win teams, that tie is kind of going to bail them out because they'll only, even if they lose that last game, they would be 9-6-1, and they're going to be more than likely an 8-loss team will be the 7th seed. So
yeah, Giants clinch with a win.
That's an incredible season for Brian Daboll because even in the old school NFL, they would have been a legitimate playoff team. Now it's a down NFC, but still, that's that team. I don't know about you. I didn't think they would be probably drafted in the top 5. That's where I would have bet them to be, not where they're in the mix.
Yeah, and you'll see that in this game too. There's a big coaching mismatch for sure, which is worth something. But I value that more if the Giants were an underdog here. I don't think that matters as much for winning by margin. But their staff, Brian Daboll, I think deserves Coach of the Year. Although you could argue Kyle Shanahan should be in the mix for what he's done with Brock Purdy. And the 49ers. But Daboll has been just amazing. I mean, you go back to a game last week, and they should have won.
We call him Joe Montana 2.0 out west.
Yeah, sorry. I will refer to him as that going forward. But yeah, he was a guy in college that was only good in October, and now all of a sudden he's going to lead the 49ers to the Super Bowl. But yeah, you go back to last week. This is a Giants team that should have won that game, right? They outgained the Vikings 450 to 350. They averaged close to 7 yards per play. And it was Daniel Jones throwing to Richie James, a 49ers cast off, and Isaiah Hodgins, who combined for 16 catches and 180 yards. That's Daboll. And, you look at Daniel Jones this year, he's looked so much better. It's the simplified offense. It's just the play calling, simplifying everything for Daniel Jones, keeping everything on one side of the field. And that's all coaching. The game management has improved. They're not running quarterback sneaks on 3rd and 8, just basic stuff, and the play calling. And this is a team that's dealt with so many injuries. Look at their wide receiver core, look at their defense. So yeah, a lot of credit to Daboll and the Giants. I think that they probably end up winning this game, as they've done a lot of games this year, by 3 or 4.
To me, Daniel Jones has a little poor man's Alex Smith to him. Not the most physically gifted as a thrower, but can move. Obviously smart, guys like him, and just needed a coach that knew what he was doing and to believe in him, and you can just get him going on the right path. And he's just going to have, I would imagine, a pretty long career. And I would guess they probably just re-sign him, at a manageable, pretty cheap number, just keep rolling. And then they just try to build up the squad and keep competing for the playoffs, kind of like the 49ers did. Now, Harbaugh had a better team of players. The Niners were much more equipped to be a higher end team because he inherited the Willises, the Vernon Davises. But I would guess that Brian Daboll attacks it that way.
Yeah, it's even more amazing what he's doing, because Gettleman left just an enormous mess, just a dumpster fire.
Yeah.
And salary cap situations. So it's going to take some time to clean that up. Like things like the Galladay trading contract and all that. But if you look at Jones, people could say there was 3 years. We know who he is, but look at the situation that he was in. Arguably the worst offensive lines over the past couple of years, the worst management, horrendous coaching. It's not like he had elite weapons all over the field, but just the coaching and the offensive lines have been so bad. Now they have addressed that in the draft. Andrew Thomas looks like a steal. I'm assuming Neal will be great. So yeah, I think they're trending in the right direction. It's going to take a couple of years to really fix it, but the NFC looks like it'll probably be wide open in the next couple of years. And yeah, the Giants are on an upward trajectory.
Okay, let's Detroit, who listen, I wanted them to make the playoffs, at least to be right there with Green Bay, and they still control their own destiny to have that game matter as long as Green Bay wins. But holy moly, did they get their ass kicked last weekend? I mean, that was what did Carolina run for over 300 yards? I mean, they embarrassed that team. Now, were they feeling themselves?
8.8 yards per play, the Panthers average. That's like when Alabama plays like the Citadel.
Yeah, it was that a case of, listen, this team had probably underachieved early, overachieved, and at the end of the day, they're 7, 8, 9, kind of right in where they're going to end up, and they're probably a year away, and they just ran out of gas and got curb stomped to a Carolina team that still has a lot to play for. Obviously, they got a big game this week, playing Chicago, who plays in interesting games, yet they always lose. And when you look at the draft order, they have just kind of been holding down that number 2 spot, and depending on what happens to the Texans the next couple weeks, they got a chance to draft number 1 for as sexy and as fun as it feels their season to be. Now, it would be an upset if the Texans don't end up, holding down that number 1 spot, but Chicago has been riding shotgun right there with them for a while, despite the way I know and a lot of people just kind of talk about him, like bright future, look at Fields. Yeah, is it really just him kind of running around? But, this is a spot you would think Detroit got their ass kicked, come back swinging. Numbers a little big, I mean, all these coaches every week that play Justin Fields and all these players go, Jesus, he was way faster. He's just a menace. And while Detroit's defense has been better, I don't care how fast your defense is, he can get held. Week 1 in a rainstorm was giving the Niners problems running around. So he's just, to me, he's a cover machine, even though your team's probably going to lose.
Which is ideal. I mean, if you're a Bears fan, you love that. You're like, all right, yeah, Fields has kind of proved himself, because you want to talk about bad situations and bad management that has ruined a team. Just talked about Gettleman and the Giants. Well, look at the Bears as well. I mean, what Fields is playing with. I mean, look at the receivers, the offensive line, and the defense. The defense is the worst in the league. These are 2 horrendous defenses.
I think the Bears have to regret that midseason. They traded their 2nd-round pick for Chase Claypool. I think that was, I get it I'm all for being bold, but that's a swing and a miss there.
Yeah, that's the team. You want to rebuild your draft capital, and yeah, they could get the number 1 pick, but I actually don't think it matters. I don't think they're drafting a quarterback. No. So if the Texans get it, they're drafting. Yeah, they could trade it, but the Bears at 2, maybe you get Will Anderson, or maybe address your offensive line, but yeah, they need draft capital. They need to get younger. The problem is the conundrum is all right, Fields has proven himself, but you got to rebuild this entire roster, and the cap situation is a nightmare. But you have Fields on the rookie contract, so like, and that's when you really want to go after it, and you can really build your roster. But they're in such a bad spot. But by the time they fix a lot of the other things, Fields won't be on the rookie contract anyway. This is almost, we could just take what I said for the Colts-Giants game and apply it here. This is another one of those games where team that needs to win at home, playing a division opponent, no less, that can spoil their season, a lot of familiarity. And this is, if you go back a month ago, the Bears were 3-point favorites at home against the Lions. Now, fast forward, a month and change, they're catching 6. And in that game, the Bears lost by 1 because of a pick 6 late. They averaged 7 yards per play against the Lions in that game. They ran wild. They should be able to do that again here. The Lions offense will cook. There's a reason this total is like 53, which is extremely high, especially this year in the NFL. But yeah, I mean, the Bears should be able to do what they've done all year, keep games close. They're coming off a stretch of like the Bills in in weather, the Eagles, which they lost by 1 possession, the Packers, they probably should have won that game, and then the Jets when it was Simeon versus White. So yeah, I think this is too many points in a division game for a Lions team that you saw it last week. This is a team they're a year away. It's going to take some time dealing with pressure, dealing with expectations. So I wouldn't be shocked if they drop this game. I like where the Lions are headed. They need to just hit on like their next 2 defensive pieces, and then they got to make a decision on the quarterback. I think Goff he did it with the Rams. He can get you to a Super Bowl if you have the right pieces around him. But I think they're still a year away. This line's too high for a division game. You're asking the Lions to win by a touchdown plus with that defense. I think that the Bears will care from everything I've read. They want Fields to get the quarterback rushing record. He should be able to run wild here. They've lost 8 straight. They've been competitive. This line is way out of whack, in my opinion.
Yeah, to me, when it comes to Detroit, and I would throw Seattle in there because they have the Rams and Denver's pick, it's going to be interesting. And I know people think I'm nuts, but Will Levis he's just going to go really high. Just the physical attributes, the character stuff. John Schneider, once upon a time, loved Josh Allen. One reason Russell Wilson has been mad at like the front office, because remember, he went to a pro day and it was like he was in love with Josh Allen. He's trying to trade the Browns to get his hands on him. Now, I don't know, Brad Holmes, they function forever, and obviously he likes Jared Goff. Maybe he philosophically believes differently, but I think one of those 2 teams, just given, Seattle's going to be competitive. It's clear, like they're not, as long as Pete's there, and they're not going to suck. And obviously Detroit definitely is not going to suck. So having those 2 picks, one of those 2 teams, I don't know which one, but I'll be stunned if they don't kind of move up a couple spots, if they end up at 4 or 5. And I would bet money Will Levis ends up on one of those 2 teams.
Yeah, I mean, once anyone sees...
think about Dan Campbell, big, strong, wants to throw, especially now he was around Sean Payton. Sean Payton's, always kind of gravitated. He started wanting one of those type guys. That's a huge mentor of his. So if one of those 2 teams could hit on a quarterback, especially Detroit, holy shit. I mean, they got some serious offensive firepower.
Yeah, there's a reason all the scouts are in love with Levis. If you go to a workout, number one, that kid, just his build, his thighs huge, are the size of a house. Yeah, his thighs are the size of a house. But when he throws a ball, it is a spectacle. You just watch him, just YouTube or Twitter search him throwing in drills, and yeah, so he's going to be. Scouts already love him, but once he gets to pro days and combine, now you have to ask yourself, does he become Josh Allen, or does he become
risky.
Malik Willis, right? Kyle Bowler, for example, a guy that, pro day on his knees throwing 80 yards into a trash can, but looked more like a trash can when he got into the game. But yeah, there's a couple teams that are just a quarterback away. And
do you agree? I mean, you live in Lexington. Do you think he'll end up going number 2 overall?
Levis?
Yeah. Or just the better way to say it, the second quarterback
top 10
off the board.
Yeah, for sure. Because if it's the Bears number 2 overall, they're not taking him, and they might be the second pick. And yeah, I'm looking at the rest of the quarterbacks. Yeah, I think that he will end up going as the second overall quarterback, and I'm really interested to see. There's a lot of interesting quarterback. The next 2 years are going to be really fascinating with quarterbacks. you have the Jets. What are the Jets going to do? Like Mike White, do they go after a free agent? Do they draft 49ers? Or, there's a lot of teams that are a quarterback away. What do the Lions do? What do the 49ers do now? It's like,
Purdy,
remember Lance? Like what happened? So another offseason of Trey Lance and in a quarterback competition. But if Purdy takes them to the moon, see ya, Trey. This is Purdy's team now. And where does Jimmy G? Like, I think Jimmy G would be a perfect fit for the Jets. Like if the Jets just had him this year, right? It would be like they'd be like the Niners, really good defense and running game. And so yeah, there's a lot of it's gonna be a fascinating quarterback market to watch in this offseason.
Well, Happy New Year. Enjoy the games. Have just a degenerate of all degenerate type weekends. This doesn't get much better. I mean, I should like you. I haven't done anything for a week now. I don't plan on doing much moving forward for the next 4 or 5 days. So, well, let's enjoy football while we have it, because we're not that far away. I mean, we only have so many games left, right?
Last Saturday, it's the last Saturday with college football until August. So that always gets me. So yeah, enjoy the games. I think both semifinals will be good. There's great college football and NFL all week. And just if you're listening, be careful on the final 2 weeks. Don't just blindly assume the team that needs to win against a dead team is going to cover. Still professional athletes, NFL teams coaches playing for jobs, players playing spoiler. Every year you're going to see, look no further than Colts-Jags last year. Colts 15-point favorites in Jacksonville, just winning it in. They get blown out, their doors blown off. So yeah, be careful, enjoy the games. Happy New Year to you and everyone listening, and let's cash some bets.
Later, Stuckey. Have a good weekend.
All right, brother, you too.